Question on a different subject from Margaret Fordham, up here. Margaret, another huge subject.
It is, yes. I'm now in my 70s. I've paid my taxes and worked to be able to afford to buy my own home, which is worth over 100,000. I want to leave it to my family, to my son, who's sitting next to me. But if I need care, they might need to sell this house to pay for the care. Is that fair?
Is it fair, Gavin Barwell, that Margaret should have to lose the value in her home to pay for care?
Okay. So the current position, Margaret, if that happened to you right now, is that your house could be eroded in value down to just £23,000. That could be all that you would be able to give on to your son. And what Theresa May is proposing in her manifesto is two things. First of all, to raise that to £100,000. But secondly, we're also saying that there should be a cap on the total contribution you should be able to make. Well, we're going to consult on
Tell us,
that.
there's an election soon. You've got to tell us before the election.
I think it's important to have a proper debate about that and have a consultation. But look, Margaret was asking me a simple question.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that people should be able to leave a significant proportion of what you've worked hard to build up to.
Your son wants to get in.
You must know what that cap is, because to be able to work all these figures out, you must know what that is. Yet Theresa May was unable or unwilling to say. My concern is that after caring for my mum, and then perhaps eventually she will have to go into care, she could be in care for years, and eventually I'd have to get a mortgage to live in my own home that we've spent years paying off. I live with my mum.
And you paid some of the mortgage as well,
yes,
is that right?
Indeed,
Yes,
for years we
yeah,
did.
he
And
has.
when my father died when I was 23, we were left in loads of debt because he had dementia himself. We clubbed together and we paid for the house, we keep the house going. I'm not saying, oh, great, look at me, how dedicated I am. But what I'm saying is we've got a property there which we've spent years looking after. When my mum goes into care, I'm going to have to end up getting a mortgage to live in my own house.
And important to say, although
I'm not alone, and I'm not alone in this either. There are
although
loads of
you
other
say
people in the same
that
situation.
Margaret will be better off with the £100,000 limit, it's not quite true, is it? Because that the value will be taken out when she uses social care in her own home. And that's the big change.
That's really important, because actually at the moment a lot of people are being forced out of their own home. Even if it's a better outcome for them to stay and be cared in their own home, some people are being forced to go into residential care when they don't want to. So that's not a good outcome for people. But look, coming back to the point the gentleman made, people will not have to sell their home at the point someone needs to go into care. I think what you said in your question is exactly right, that people who work hard should be able to pass on a significant proportion of what they've worked hard in their lives to build up to their children.
What, 100,000?
Right, let me bring...
We've been paying that off for years, that property. I mean, weren't the Conservatives and other parties encouraging us all to be aspirational and to own our own homes in order for them to take it back from us almost in their entirety when the person dies?
Let me bring in some others.
It will not be taken back from you.
Let me bring...
Typical London home with a
There's
cat
no way
will not
that
happen.
you can unspin this. This was a humiliating U-turn you've done, and also it shows that the nasty party is still well and truly alive. And the fact is, it is appalling, because the fact is we haven't taken social care for the elderly seriously enough. What we are talking about in my party is putting 1.2 billion purely into social care. We want to integrate the National Health Service and social care and put 1.2 into social care, which we will take from the hugely inflated foreign aid budget. That is where it needs to be with our elderly.
So you're taking the whole of the foreign aid budget...
No, we're going to reduce it from 0.7 right down to 0.2, which is what America spends on it. We're going to put 9 billion of that into NHS and 2 billion into social care.
OK, Sean Berry, what do you think?
Why is that funny? I think it's a
Sean
great
Berry.
idea.
The Conservatives have made a right mess of this. I mean, I think it is completely wrong to try and take away your home to pay for your care. This is social security. It's one of those things that should be paid for out of things like national insurance. Now, what we do is not reduce national insurance for the better paid. It currently drops at a certain level to a very low level. We think people should carry on paying national insurance and that it should go towards social care. And when it comes to inheritance, we think the money that comes from inheritance should be taxed according to the income of who receives it, not according to the estate that's giving it. I think that would be much, much more fair when you've got people who maybe have, that's their home is their only asset. Their children are poor, their children cannot afford other homes. If those children are not wealthy, they should not be taxed on that inheritance.
Diane Abbott, what about that? Your leader, Tony Blair, who, of course, you're a big fan of, did once say you shouldn't have to sell your home to pay for your care. And I think he got the biggest round of applause he ever had at a party conference. Is that your policy still?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's exactly right. And I know people from the inner city who scrimped and saved to buy a house in Gavin's constituency. They did without a lot of things. And to tell them, when they have paid into their national insurance all their life, that they're going to pay this dementia tax, because what is new is you are going to charge this dementia tax. You're going to take people's homes after they've died from people who are getting care in their home. It was always about people that were going into care homes. You have taken this a step further, and you're going to have this dementia tax for people who are just getting care in their homes. And of course
you have to raise more tax to do what you want to do, which to have the state pay for it in every case. And therefore I want to just mention this fact that you are going to raise the tax on people earning £80,000 and above. Now, you know, in London, somebody on £80,000 might not even be able to afford to buy a house. That's how crazy the property market is here. So how is it fair to ask them to pay more tax?
The point about... We're only talking about putting income tax on the top 5%. And the point about income tax, consistently applied, it is still fairer than randomly taking the houses of people who happen to have made that investment.
What about inheritance tax? You're going to target a typical London home is going to pay inheritance tax under John McDonnell's proposal.
All right, Vince Cable.
425,000.
I mean, what is so incompetent as well as cruel about what the Conservatives did was that we're getting all this talk about consultation. We've already had one. We spent, I think, 3 years in the coalition consulting. There's a 300-page document drawn up by a man called Dilnot, and we agreed a number, a figure. 72,000. And there was absolutely no reason whatever why the Conservatives couldn't have stayed with that. But there is a separate issue, which links to the issue of taxation, that quite apart from, you know, how you fund long-term personal care, there is a current crisis in actually paying for the domiciliary care services of local councils. They've lost vast amounts of money. Elderly, frail people are having to go into hospital and are staying in hospital. One of the reasons we're arguing that we want ordinary taxpayers to pay a penny in the pound on income tax is partly to support the health service, but partly to support the social care budgets, because you have to look at those two things together.
We've got actually in the audience, I think, I don't know if you're retired, Paul, but Paul Saper, Director of... You're not retired yet, even better. And you're Director of Health and Social Care, is that right?
Yes, consulting company. I actually was involved with the Royal Commission on Long-Term Care. Well, I think, just to correct it, get the arguments right, it was 14,250 is the actual limit today. Not 23,000, and it was the Liberals and the Conservatives that proposed in the 2014 Act that it should increase to 17,000, if you remember.
Do you see a solution? Can you hear a solution today?
I think what the Prime Minister did was she said, instead of having 14,250, let's have it 100,000. And she also turned around and said that OK, people who are receiving help in their own homes, perhaps they should actually come out of their resources as well. That's about, that's roughly speaking, £200 a week. You've got to spend a lot of 10,000 before you get it. But the question I ask is, when you're sitting there in government and you've got responsibilities, and you're looking at the budget for adult social care, what's your priority? You know, is it in this area, or are there other areas of adult social care you prioritise, and how would you pay for it?
Thank you. OK, but I want to hear from the audience, I'm afraid, so we'll come back to that maybe. Yes, what would you like to say?
Hello. I believe the Conservatives have been consulting with insurance companies for months now in regards to the dementia tax. And what I'd like to say is you've done 27 U-turns since your last manifesto. How dare you expect people to implicitly trust you now?
OK, anybody else? Anyone else? There's no obvious... It's not easy, this. There's no obvious solution. Yes, in the tartan shirt.
Oh, yes. Hello. I think it's unfair to completely go on the U-turn, because I think surely if you get bad feedback and you then make changes, surely that's a good thing, not a bad thing. The Conservatives are far from being the only party who have done that.
All right, who asked the question on this? Just remind me, where was our brilliant original question? Yes, Margaret. Yeah. What do you think? You're worried about your home, right?
I am. Yes, I am. And I really feel that you know, for years we've had to work so hard to keep our home. And for this to happen, it's so disappointing, and I'm so disappointed in the Conservatives. I
All right.
really, really am.
Thank you very much. You know what? We're out of time. Thank you, politicians. Thank you, brilliant audience, as well. And yes, all I should say really is that polling takes place on June the 8th. And thank you very much indeed for watching. From all of us here, good night.